Okay, well, I'm gonna have a video lecture today about writing emails. And I'll be looking at my notes here on my phone, so forgive me for that. So the main thing I want to focus on today, as we're talking about writing emails, is imagining the human on the other side of our email that's receiving our email. And that person has a huge schedule full of things to do, that they are swamped, and that your email is just one more thing on an already huge pile of things that they have to deal with. So the things I'm going to talk about today are going to streamline the process and hopefully get things as ready to please the person on the other end of the line as possible. We're going to break the email down into 6 parts. The subject line, the greeting, then the body is composed of 2 parts. New information that we're going to give, and then what we're going to ask the person, and then the end is a closer and a signature. Each one of these has its own purpose, and each one of them serves as a way to make the reader feel better about us and to enjoy the experience of receiving our email no matter what the content of it is.
You've got mail.
First place we'll start is the subject line. So this is the first thing that your reader sees when they encounter your email. You know what an inbox looks like. Yours is one line out of lots and lots. Your subject line is going to appear as bold words. Subject line in some ways is a sales pitch. This person has so many things competing for their attention. This guy, Jeffrey, Hammerbacher, who used to work for Facebook, he said, "The best minds of my generation are thinking about how to make people click ads or to answer emails," right? The best minds of our generation are coming up with ways to get people to click on email or to click on ads in websites and stuff like that. So you are one voice among thousands of the best voices who are getting people's attention. So you need to keep that in mind and understand that, like, not always that person has an obligation to click on your email. So your subject line is hugely important in getting them to want to invest the time and the energy it takes to read your email and understand what you're trying to tell them. What makes a good subject line then is that it's very clear about the content of the email. It gives some indication of whether it's good news or bad news for that person, and also indicates in some ways what that person is expected to do with that email once they get it. So one other important thing to consider with subject lines is that you should consider them to be publicly viewable by everyone. There's nothing private about a subject line. Let's say you have a problem with LinkedIn accounting and you want the HR person to deal with it, right? So you're going to send them an email. The wrong thing to do would just be to say, "LinkedIn accounting is the stupidest person I've ever met." For one thing, it's too long. For another thing, that contains personal information that would not be great to be viewed by other people in public. A better thing to write, a better subject line would be personnel issue, meeting Thursday with a question mark, right? So that does 3 really important things. One, it tells this person who to be, right? You're an HR person, so it's a personnel issue. The word issue indicates that it's negative, right? There's an issue, there's something wrong. And then it also indicates to them what you want out of them. Meeting Thursday, question mark, right? So without even reading the email, they know everything that's going to be about. Yeah, the cool thing about subject lines, if you've written a really good one, sometimes you don't even have to write the rest of the email. So, okay, next thing, greeting. Sometimes this is called the salutation, but I'm going to call it the greeting. So one more other thing to consider about this human who's receiving our email on the other line is that we as people have a lot of different hats that we wear, a lot of different roles we fulfill in our lives. And that person has to act a certain way when they read your email. So if you're a coworker, you need to write it the way a coworker would write it. If you're their friend, you need to write it that certain way. So one thing that's frustrating for me as a professor is if a student writes to me, "Hey, Steven," like they refer to me by my first name, which makes me automatically think, oh, this person's being friendly with me. And then they go into why they didn't like the grade they got on an essay or something like that. There's a disconnect there. I'm supposed to be reading this as Dr. Hopkins, but then I get it as a first name thing, and so I feel frustrated by that, right? You're not on that level with me if we're talking about that. If you've got a question about what I did over the weekend and you want to talk to me as a person, sure, say, "Hey, Steven," that's fine. But if it's a professional question about your grade or something like that, refer to me by my title, Dr. Hopkins. The other thing too is your greeting, like I say, sets the tone for your relationship with that person and also the tone of the full email. If the tone of an email is like you're apologizing for something you did wrong and then you start with "hello!" exclamation point, that's going to come off as tone deaf and the person's going to resent you for it, right? So you're setting up tone, you're setting up who the person is, and you're setting up how many people there are. For example, if I'm emailing something as an announcement to my entire class, I will write the greeting as "class," comma, so that they know when everyone gets it that they are part of a group, that this isn't sent to them individually, right? Okay, so now we're at the body of the email. And again, there's two parts of the body of an email: the new information and then the ask. If you want your reader to have a positive experience with your emails, these two sections should be as short as possible. The first is new information. Deciding what is and isn't new information isn't always easy. There's no real shortcut to this. But you should only write something in an email if it's absolutely reasonable that that person doesn't know that information. A milestone was reached that a person didn't know about. Some new news happened on something you're working with together. If you feel like the person already knows the information and you feel like you still need to send it, you should acknowledge it in some way. To show them that you recognize that their time is valuable and you know that they probably know this information, but you're just double checking. Also keep in mind that one really important thing about new info is who you are as a person. If they don't know you, then that's new information to them. If you're like pitching them for the first time, you need to give yourself a brief introduction. This also happens with students. I have a lot of students. So right off the bat, you should say, I'm this person in this class. So that helps me understand who you are so I can start to wrap my mind around what am I supposed to be doing with this email. So the other thing that other task that the body of your email should be accomplishing is an ask, that you're asking for something directly from your reader because of this new information that you're giving them. This is important. If there is nothing you want them to do with the information, do not send an email. There's no reason for it. You are wasting their time if they're not supposed to directly do something with this new information you give them. So there's all sorts of things you can ask. You can ask just directly for information. You can ask them for their time, to schedule a time to talk with you. If you need permission from them to do something, that's a way to get that permission from them. One other thing too about the ask is it should give clear directions for that person to accomplish what you want them to do. So for example, you need somebody to look over a file for you. You're collaborating on it. You need to give them the name of the file and where they can find that file. Right? Or if there's some particular task they need to do in some particular place, tell them where that place is, what time they're supposed to be there, and then also a really important thing is when you need the work done by. All right, so I lost the footage of the last part, so I had to redo it. Anyway, so we're at the end of an email. We've got a closer and a signature. Now the closer, the main point of it is just to say, that was the end of the email. So there's white space at the end and then a closer. Closer always ends with a comma. And it's always above the signature. So a couple important things about the closer is that one, it's your chance to reinforce the tone and the purpose of the email. If the purpose of the email was to ask for something, you say thanks as your email. If the purpose was to introduce yourself or to put yourself in their life for the first time, then you can say thanks for your time, to recognize that you imposed on their time by introducing them and giving them new information that they didn't necessarily know what to do with. If the purpose of the email was to apologize, then you can say sorry again at the end. Or if you're scheduling a meeting, looking forward to your thoughts. So it just reinforces the purpose of the email, again, always with a comma. So the last thing then is the signature. And so this is, again, where you remind your reader who you are in relationship to them. So in casual settings, if it's just a peer, you can put whatever you want. In a professional setting, you should always include your title after the name and the name of the company that you work for, because the purpose of this email is to represent your company and yourself to this person. And so it's important to list those things. One other thing this does is it establishes the hierarchy. If you are subordinate to this person, your title shows that. If you are a superior to this person, then your title reflects that. And so it reinforces who you are and the hierarchy of things. So that helps the human on the other end of the email receiving it recognize who they are, who they're supposed to be as their email. So the signature is just another way to reinforce that. Lots of people include contact information underneath their signature, which is okay, especially if it's a phone number and they don't have it available somewhere else. I don't think it's a big deal to include your email as part of the signature. Lots of people do that. I don't think anybody's ever going to use that because they'll just reply to your email, but I don't think it's that big of a deal. Nobody's going to pay attention to it. There we have the 6 parts of an email. Subject line, the greeting, the new information, the ask, the closer, and the signature. So again, the main important thing, more than anything, is to keep in mind the human on the other end, the receiving end of your email. They've got so much stuff in their life already. Your email needs to get in, give them the information they need, ask them for something directly and clearly that they can accomplish, and give them as much instructions as they need to get that thing done. So yeah, that's it. Then just some basics. It's typical to not indent email paragraphs. You just keep everything left justified, everything all against the left side of your email. Add a space in between paragraphs. You add an extra space between the body and the closer, and then also between the closer and the signature, but then no spaces in between your title and your signature. So last part of the body, space, closer with a comma, space, your name, and then title with no spaces. So there you go. Basics of an email. Hope that helped you, and good luck with everything. We'll see ya.